Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another inspiring biography story, where we not only learn about the life of amazing people, but also practice English listening. I'm so excited to share with you the life story of one of the greatest leaders in history, Abraham Lincoln. Listening to these stories will help you improve your English skills while also motivating you to never give up, no matter how tough life gets. Now, sit back, relax, and let's begin the story of Abraham Lincoln, a man who started from nothing and became one of the most important leaders in the world. Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809, in a small log cabin in Hodgenville, Kentucky, USA. He was the second child of Thomas and Nancy Lincoln. The family was poor, and life was not easy for little Abe. The cabin was very small, with only one room where the entire family slept, ate, and lived. When Abraham was born, there were no schools nearby. Education was a big challenge for children in those days, and the Lincoln family didn't have money for fancy books or a private teacher. But from a very young age, Abraham loved to read. His family didn't have much, but Abraham's mind was hungry for knowledge. Life for Abraham Lincoln was filled with hardship. When Abraham was only 9 years old, something tragic happened that would change his life forever. His mother, Nancy Lincoln, passed away due to milk sickness, a disease caused by drinking the milk of cows who ate poisonous plants. Abraham was heartbroken. He had loved his mother deeply, and her death left a big hole in his heart. After his mother passed away, Abraham's father, Thomas, remarried. His new wife, Sarah Bush Johnston, came into their lives when Abraham was around 10 years old. Sarah was kind and caring, and she treated Abraham with love and understanding. She also encouraged his love for learning and brought books into their home. Even though Abraham was still sad about losing his mother, he slowly started to build a bond with his stepmother. But life wasn't easy for young Abraham. The family moved around a lot, and they didn't have a stable home. Abraham had to work on the farm to help his father. He split logs to build fences, plowed fields, and did other hard jobs. But despite all the work, Abraham always found time to read. He read books by candlelight at night, sometimes reading for hours after a long day of work. As Abraham grew older, he became a young man full of dreams. He wanted to do something bigger with his life, but his family was poor, and he didn't have many chances. When Abraham was about 22 years old, he went to New Salem, a small village in Illinois, where he worked at a store. It was here that he met Anne Rutledge, a kind and beautiful young woman. Abraham and Anne became very close, and many people believed they were in love. They dreamed of a future together, but life was cruel. In 1835, Anne fell very ill and tragically died. Abraham was heartbroken once again. He had already faced so many losses in his life: the death of his mother, the moving from place to place, and now the loss of the woman he loved. This loss was a deep pain for young Abraham, but it also taught him something important about life. Life is hard, but we must keep going, no matter what. Despite the many challenges and heartbreaks he faced, Abraham Lincoln never gave up. He worked hard and did his best to improve his life. After Anne's death, Abraham decided to focus on something that had always interested him: politics. He began to read about the laws and the government of the country. He wanted to make a difference. Abraham's first step into politics came when he decided to run for the Illinois state legislature in 1832 at the age of 23. He didn't have much money or support, but he believed in himself. However, he lost the election. Many people might have given up after losing, but not Abraham. He kept going. After his loss in the election, Abraham turned to a new path. He decided to become a lawyer. He didn't attend a law school because he couldn't afford it, but he studied on his own. Lincoln worked hard, reading law books, practicing in front of a mirror, and learning from other lawyers. He passed the bar exam in 1836, becoming a lawyer at the age of 27. Abraham Lincoln began to practice law in Springfield, Illinois. He was known for being honest and fair, which earned him the nickname Honest Abe. He became very successful as a lawyer, helping people solve their problems and always sticking to his values. But even with success in law, he still dreamed of something bigger. He realized that he wanted more than just a career in law. He wanted to make a difference in the world, and that meant stepping into politics. In 1834, at the age of 25, Lincoln was elected to the Illinois state legislature as a member of the Whig Party. This was his first big step into the world of politics, and it was just the beginning. Lincoln didn't just sit in meetings and talk about laws. He used his position to speak out about important issues that were affecting people's lives. He was very concerned about slavery and its effects on the country. While most politicians at that time ignored the issue, Lincoln stood up and spoke about the need for freedom for all people. Even though he wasn't yet a famous leader, people started to notice his passion for justice and his commitment to what was right. Lincoln's path in politics wasn't easy. He faced many struggles. In 1836, when he was only 27 years old, he decided to run for Congress. He thought that if he became a congressman, he could do more for the people and fight against slavery. But it wasn't meant to be. Lincoln lost the election. It was another failure in his life, but just like before, Lincoln didn't give up. He didn't see losing as the end. Instead, he saw it as another lesson, another opportunity to learn and grow. For the next few years, Lincoln continued his work as a lawyer and kept fighting for what he believed was right. He didn't win every battle, but his reputation as a fair and honest man grew. He knew that in order to truly make a difference, he needed to keep pushing forward. He often said, "The best way to predict your future is to create it." In 1858, something amazing happened. Abraham Lincoln was asked to run for the U.S. Senate. He agreed, knowing that it was a chance for him to speak out about the issue of slavery. But this time, he wasn't alone. He was running against one of the most powerful politicians in Illinois, Stephen A. Douglas. The two men held a series of debates that would change the course of history. These Lincoln-Douglas debates became famous because they were about more than just politics. Lincoln spoke powerfully about the need to end slavery in the United States. He didn't just talk about the wrongness of slavery. He also explained how it affected everyone, even those who didn't own slaves. Lincoln's words were clear and powerful. He said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." This meant that the country couldn't continue to be both free and slave-holding at the same time. It had to choose a side. Lincoln was telling America that it had to choose freedom for all people. Although Lincoln lost the Senate race to Douglas, his speeches and ideas had a huge impact on the nation. People started to take him seriously as a leader. He had shown that he was willing to stand up for what was right, even when it wasn't popular. His words spread across the country, and soon, people from all over the United States were talking about him. Abraham Lincoln was no longer just a small-town lawyer. He was a rising star in American politics. In 1860, just 2 years after the famous debates, something huge happened. The Republican Party asked Abraham Lincoln to run for president. At the time, the country was deeply divided over the issue of slavery. The southern states wanted to keep slavery, and the northern states wanted to abolish it. Tensions were high, and many people feared that the country might go to war. Lincoln knew that the future of the nation was at a crossroads. He didn't want war, but he knew that he had to take a strong stand against slavery. He promised that he would not let slavery spread into new states and territories. His goal was to stop the expansion of slavery, and that was enough to win the support of many northern states. On November 6, 1860, Lincoln was elected as the 16th President of the United States. But even though Lincoln won the election, many southern states didn't accept him. They felt that his anti-slavery views would destroy their way of life. 7 southern states decided to leave the Union and form their own country, which they called the Confederate States of America. The country was now on the brink of war. In April 1861, just a few months after Lincoln became president, the Civil War began. The war was a fight to preserve the United States as one country and to end the institution of slavery. Lincoln knew that he had to act quickly, but he also wanted to avoid bloodshed. Unfortunately, war seemed unavoidable. As the war went on, Lincoln faced some of the hardest decisions of his life. He had to lead the country through the bloodiest conflict it had ever seen, with thousands of soldiers dying on both sides. But throughout it all, he never lost sight of his goal: to preserve the Union and end slavery. Throughout the Civil War, Lincoln faced many challenges. He faced criticism from both sides of the war. Some felt he was too harsh, while others believed he wasn't doing enough. But Lincoln stayed true to his beliefs. He continued to fight for freedom, unity, and equality for all people. He didn't let the difficulties of the war change his commitment to justice. As the Civil War raged on, Lincoln's leadership became more crucial than ever. The fate of the Union was uncertain, and Lincoln knew that the choices he made would determine the future of the United States. The war was brutal, and the country was divided. Lincoln's heart weighed heavy with the responsibility of making life-or-death decisions, not only for the soldiers, but for the entire nation. Yet throughout it all, he remained calm and determined, focused on his goal: preserving the Union and freeing those who had been enslaved. Lincoln spent countless hours at the White House, working late into the night, reading reports, and making decisions that would change the course of history. He was known for his patience, listening carefully to advice from others, but he also trusted his own judgment. One of the most significant moments during the war came in 1863 at the Battle of Gettysburg. The battle lasted 3 days and resulted in one of the highest death tolls of the war. The Union's victory at Gettysburg was a turning point, but it was also a reminder of the incredible sacrifice being made. Lincoln, devastated by the loss of so many lives, knew that he had to address the nation. In November 1863, Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address, one of the most powerful speeches in history. It was brief, just over 2 minutes long, but its message resonated with people across the country. Lincoln reminded Americans that the war wasn't just about preserving the Union, it was about a higher ideal: freedom and equality. He declared that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. The speech, though short, captured the essence of the struggle. It wasn't just about winning a war, it was about fighting for a better future. It was about ensuring that every American, regardless of race or background, would be treated with dignity and respect. Lincoln's words inspired not only those in the audience but also future generations. While Lincoln faced incredible challenges as president, his personal life was also filled with hardship. In 1862, his beloved son, Willie, fell ill and died at the age of 11. This was a devastating blow to Lincoln and his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln. The loss of a child is a pain no parent should ever have to bear, and it weighed heavily on Lincoln's heart. Despite his grief, Lincoln continued to lead the country. Those who knew him said that his personal sorrow made him even more compassionate and determined. He often spoke about how much he loved his children, and the loss of Willie reminded him of the importance of family and the preciousness of life. As the war continued, Lincoln grew more committed to ending slavery. He knew that the only way to truly heal the country was to free the enslaved people who had been held in bondage for so long. In 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, a bold step that declared that all enslaved people in the Confederate States would be free. This was a turning point not just in the war, but in American history. Lincoln's decision to take such a bold stand wasn't without risk. Many people, even in the North, didn't support the abolition of slavery. But Lincoln believed that the moral cost of slavery was too great, and that the country could not heal until it had faced this injustice. The Emancipation Proclamation was a significant victory, but it wasn't the end of the struggle. Lincoln knew that true freedom for all Americans would require more than just a piece of paper. It would require changing the very foundation of the country's laws. That's why he pushed for the 13th Amendment, which would permanently abolish slavery in the United States. He understood that the fight for freedom wasn't just about words. It was about action, and it was about creating lasting change. Lincoln's role as president wasn't limited to just speeches and laws. He was also the commander-in-chief of the Union Army. Early in the war, he struggled to find the right general to lead the Union forces. General George McClellan, who was in charge at first, was cautious and unwilling to take risks. Lincoln needed a leader who would be bold and decisive. After several setbacks, Lincoln found his man in General Ulysses S. Grant. Grant was a man of action, willing to make tough decisions and fight to the end. Under Grant's leadership, the Union Army began to win critical battles. In 1864, after a series of victories, the Union forces began to push the Confederate Army back. It was clear that the end of the war was drawing near, and Lincoln trusted Grant to finish the fight. By 1865, the Confederacy was on the brink of defeat. The Union had made significant progress, and the Confederate forces were weakening. On April 9, 1865, General Robert E. Lee, leader of the Confederate Army, surrendered to General Grant at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia. The Civil War was finally over. Lincoln's dream of preserving the Union and ending slavery had come true. The nation was beginning to heal, but the work was far from over. Lincoln knew that the country would have to rebuild itself, and that the journey toward true equality was just beginning. But the victory was a moment of triumph for Lincoln and for the American people. He had faced incredible challenges, both personally and professionally, and he had emerged victorious. Just days after the Confederate surrender, tragedy struck. On the evening of April 14, 1865, as Lincoln attended a play at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., he was shot by John Wilkes Booth, an actor and Confederate sympathizer. Lincoln was rushed to a nearby house, where he passed away the following morning, on April 15, 1865. The nation was in shock. Lincoln, the man who had led them through the darkest days of the Civil War, was gone. His death marked the end of an era, but his legacy lived on. His vision for a country that was united and free would continue to shape America for generations to come. As the United States moved into a new chapter of its history after Lincoln's tragic death, his legacy began to grow stronger. Though he was no longer alive to lead, his vision for the country remained alive in the hearts of the people. Lincoln had fought for a nation that was united, free, and full of promise for every person, regardless of their race or background. After Lincoln's assassination, the task of rebuilding the country fell to his successor, Andrew Johnson, and later to Ulysses S. Grant. This period of Reconstruction was an extremely challenging time for the country. The South had been devastated by the war, and now it had to be rebuilt. But there were many difficulties ahead, especially with the issue of how to bring the Southern states back into the Union. Despite Lincoln's death, his hopes for a reunited country were still the guiding light. One of the most important things Lincoln had accomplished before his death was the passage of the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery throughout the nation. This was a monumental achievement, but Lincoln's vision had not been fully realized. He had wanted a country where all men, no matter their color, could live as equals. The work of creating this nation was just beginning. Though Lincoln was gone, people looked to his life as a model for how to approach hardship, struggle, and injustice. Lincoln's personal story was one of overcoming great obstacles. Born in a log cabin to poor parents, he had to work hard for everything he achieved. He had no formal education but taught himself by reading books. His life showed that success wasn't about where you started. It was about where you were willing to go. One of the most incredible things about Lincoln was his ability to maintain his humanity, even during the darkest moments. He showed the world that true leadership wasn't about power or control, but about compassion, understanding, and doing what was right, even when it was difficult. His ability to forgive, his belief in the potential for growth and change, and his commitment to his values made him a timeless figure, admired around the world. As time passed, Abraham Lincoln's legacy became enshrined not just in the hearts of Americans, but in the history books. One of the most lasting symbols of Lincoln's legacy is the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. It was completed in 1922, nearly 60 years after Lincoln's death. The memorial stands as a reminder of everything Lincoln fought for, a nation where liberty and equality are paramount. Inside the memorial, a towering statue of Lincoln sits, looking out over the National Mall. His facial expression is calm, yet strong, a reflection of the character he showed throughout his life. The words of his Gettysburg Address are etched into the walls, a reminder of the ideals he stood for. The memorial has become a place where people from all walks of life come to reflect on his legacy and the progress America has made, and still has to make, toward equality for all. His life is proof that no matter how hard the circumstances, you can always take action to shape your future. Another quote from Lincoln that resonates today is, "I am a slow walker, but I never walk back." This speaks to his perseverance. Even when things seemed impossible, Lincoln kept moving forward. He faced defeat, but he never gave up. His determination is something that anyone facing challenges can relate to. Perhaps the most enduring aspect of Lincoln's legacy is his commitment to freedom and equality. Lincoln didn't just talk about the importance of liberty, he took bold action to make it a reality. The Emancipation Proclamation, which he signed in 1863, was a major turning point in American history. It freed the enslaved people in the Confederate States, and although the fight was not over, it was a declaration of Lincoln's deep belief in human dignity and equality. The 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery in the United States, was a direct result of Lincoln's leadership. His vision for a free nation was not limited to just one moment in time. It was a guiding principle for future generations. Lincoln's death, tragic as it was, did not stop the work he had begun. The seeds he planted would grow into the civil rights movement and the fight for justice that continues to this day. Lincoln's story is not just one for the history books. His life and leadership remain relevant today. We live in a world that still faces divisions, injustice, and inequality, just as Lincoln did in his time. His story shows us that no matter how difficult the situation, change is possible. It takes courage, perseverance, and a commitment to what is right. Lincoln didn't just lead a country through a war, he led it toward a brighter future. In today's world, we still look to Lincoln's example for inspiration. Leaders, activists, and everyday people continue to draw strength from his words and actions. Let us now bring Abraham Lincoln's remarkable journey to its conclusion. Not an end, but a beginning for us to reflect on, learn from, and apply to our own lives. This is a story not just about a man, but about an idea. The idea that no matter where you start in life, you can rise above challenges and leave a legacy of greatness. Abraham Lincoln taught the world what perseverance truly means. Born into poverty, he worked tirelessly to overcome every obstacle. He faced heartbreak, failure, and rejection throughout his life. Yet every time life pushed him down, he stood back up. He taught us that failure is not the end. Remember when Lincoln lost his business? When he failed in his first attempt to win a seat in the legislature? When his love, Anne Rutledge, passed away, leaving him heartbroken? Most people would have given up, but Lincoln used these setbacks as stepping stones. One of his most powerful lessons is this: my great concern is not whether you have failed, but whether you are content with your failure. Lincoln believed that failure was just another opportunity to learn, grow, and move forward. What made Lincoln unforgettable was his compassion. As a leader, he didn't just represent the powerful or the wealthy. He fought for those who had no voice. He believed in the principle that all men are created equal. What separated Lincoln from many leaders was his humility. Even as the President of the United States, he never saw himself as better than others. He was known for greeting soldiers, shaking hands with common people, and listening to their stories. He once said, "Whatever you are, be a good one. Whether you're a teacher, a student, a worker, or a leader, give your best." Lincoln didn't believe in shortcuts or easy paths. He believed in giving his all in everything he did. What can we learn from this extraordinary man? 1. Dream big, start small. Lincoln didn't start as a president. He started as a young boy reading books by candlelight. Success doesn't come overnight. It's built brick by brick. 2. Overcome fear. Lincoln faced rejection, war, and even death threats, yet he never let fear stop him. 3. Lead with love. Even during the Civil War, Lincoln's goal was not to punish but to unite. He showed that true leadership comes from love, not power. 4. Believe in equality. Lincoln stood firm in his belief that every human being deserves freedom and dignity. He risked everything to fight for what was right. If Lincoln could rise above poverty, loss, and failure to change the course of history, then so can we. His life is a reminder that we all have the power to create a legacy, not just for ourselves, but for the world. So, my dear friends, what will your legacy be? Will you give up when life gets tough? Or will you keep moving forward, just as Lincoln did? Will you fight for what is right, even when it's difficult? Will you believe in yourself, even when no one else does? Lincoln's life shows us that greatness isn't about being perfect. It's about staying true to your values and never giving up. If you've been inspired by this story of Abraham Lincoln, let me know in the comments what part of his journey touched your heart the most. Share this video with your friends and family so they too can learn from Lincoln's life. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more stories like this. Stories that inspire, motivate, and help you improve your English listening skills. Together we can grow, learn, and become better every day. Thank you for being with me on this incredible journey through the life of Abraham Lincoln. Remember, like Lincoln said, the best thing about the future is that it comes one day at a time. Let's make each day count.